You mean to tell me they survived again? Xal'tor's voice quivered with a mix of disbelief and frustration, his mandibles clicking audibly in the silent chamber. Not just survived, replied Krenla, the chief strategist of the Zorvian Council. Her emerald-hued scales shimmered under the bioluminescent lights. They thrived, rebuilt their settlements. And they retaliated. Xal'tor slammed his clawed hand against the crystalline table, the sharp crack reverberating through the room. Retaliated? How? Their weapons are primitive compared to ours. Their biology is fragile. Fragile? Krenla let out a low, guttural laugh. You underestimate them, Xal'tor. Their biology is deceptive. What they lack in physical strength, they more than compensate for with their resilience. Resilience? Is that what we're calling it now? Xal'tor sneered. I call it infuriating. Call it what you will, Krenla said, her tone calm but firm. But the fact remains. The humans are unlike any species we've encountered. Xal'tor sank back into his seat, his elongated limbs folding in frustration. Explain. Krenla gestured toward a holographic display that materialized above the table. It showed a series of images and data streams. Human cities being bombarded, soldiers falling in battle, civilians enduring catastrophic events. Yet, in each sequence, the humans rose again, defying all odds. We've subjected them to every form of attack imaginable, Krenla began. Biological warfare? They adapted. Environmental destruction? They rebuilt. Psychological manipulation? They resisted. And the Zarnak's plague? Xal'tor interjected. That wiped out entire civilizations in mere cycles. It slowed them down, Krenla admitted. But then they developed a cure. A cure, Xal'tor. For a plague that even our most advanced scientists couldn't fully comprehend. Xal'tor's mandibles clicked again, this time in thought. Perhaps they had outside help. An ally species, maybe. If only it were that simple, Krenla said. No, this is purely their doing. Their scientists, their ingenuity, their sheer will to survive. Xal'tor leaned forward, his curiosity piqued despite his irritation. What drives them? What makes them so unyielding? Krenla hesitated, her gaze shifting to the display. That is the question, isn't it? We've studied their physiology, their psychology, their history. And the answer, well, it's not one we're accustomed to hearing. Spare me the theatrics, Krenla. Xal'tor snapped. What is it? Hope, she said simply. Xal'tor stared at her, his expression blank. Hope? That's absurd. Hope is intangible. It cannot be quantified or weaponized. And yet, Krenla said, it's their greatest strength. When faced with insurmountable odds, they don't surrender. They fight. They innovate. They endure. Because they believe. No, they know there's a chance, however slim, that they can prevail. Xal'tor let out a low growl. You make them sound unstoppable. Not unstoppable, Krenla corrected. Unkillable. The chamber fell silent as the weight of her words settled over them. For a moment, even Xal'tor's usual bravado was subdued. Then, with a resigned sigh, he said, So, what do we do? How do we deal with an unkillable species? Krenla's gaze hardened. We learn from them. We adapt as they do. Or we face extinction. Far away, on the blue and green planet that had become the focal point of countless alien strategies, a group of humans gathered around a makeshift campfire. Their clothes were tattered, their faces smudged with dirt, but their eyes burned with determination. So, one of them said, his voice hoarse but steady, What's the plan? A woman with a scar running down her cheek leaned forward, her expression fierce. We hit them where it hurts. Show them that we're not just survivors. We're fighters. You think they'll ever give up? Another asked. The woman shook her head. No, but neither will we. Back in the Zorvian council chamber, Xal'tor's mandibles twitched in frustration. If hope is their weapon, then we must find a way to extinguish it. Krenla's eyes narrowed. And if we can't? Xal'tor didn't answer. Because deep down, he knew the truth. The humans' hope wasn't something that could be extinguished. It was a flame that burned brighter with every challenge, every loss, every attempt to snuff it out. And that made them the most formidable adversaries the galaxy had ever known. The Zorvian Council's deliberations stretched into the following cycles. New strategies were proposed, debated, and dismissed. Some suggested unleashing advanced neural inhibitors to suppress human cognition, while others leaned toward complete planetary annihilation, a solution that, while drastic, seemed increasingly appealing to the more desperate members of the Council. But Krenlaw, ever the pragmatist, advocated for a different approach. We need to understand their culture, she insisted during one heated session. To defeat them, we must think like them. Think like them? Scoffed a younger council member, his vibrant blue scales bristling with irritation. We are superior in every measurable way. What could we possibly learn from such a primitive species? Superior? Krenlaw's tone turned icy. If we are so superior, then why have we failed at every turn? Why are we the ones scrambling for answers while they continue to resist and rebuild? The chamber fell silent, the younger member shrinking under her glare. I propose we send an emissary, Krenlaw continued, someone to observe them up close, to understand their strengths and weaknesses firsthand. Xal'tor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. And who would be foolish enough to volunteer for such a mission? Krenlaw's gaze swept across the room before settling on Xal'tor. Perhaps someone with a vested interest in their defeat. Xal'tor's eyes narrowed. You can't be serious. I am, Krenlaw said firmly. You've been their harshest critic, Xal'tor. If anyone is capable of uncovering their secrets, it's you. On Earth, the humans continued their relentless preparations. Underground bunkers were fortified, resistance cells coordinated across continents, and scientists worked tirelessly to develop countermeasures against the alien technologies. We're running out of time, said Dr. Elena Vasquez, a leading biologist, as she examined a fragment of Zorvian technology. If we can't figure out how this works, we're doomed. We're not doomed, replied Captain Marcus Hale, a battle-hardened soldier who had become a symbol of human resilience. We've faced worse odds before. Elena sighed, her exhaustion evident. Sometimes I envy them, you know, the Zorvians. Their technology, their unity. They don't have the same flaws we do. Marcus shook his head. It's not their technology that makes them strong. It's their lack of understanding of what makes us strong. They see our flaws as weaknesses. But those flaws? They're what keep us fighting. Xal'tor's arrival on Earth was anything but subtle. Disguised in a biosuit that mimicked human physiology, he blended into their society, observing their behaviors and interactions. What he saw both fascinated and confounded him. He watched as humans argued passionately over trivial matters, only to band together in moments of crisis. He saw their capacity for kindness, even in the face of unimaginable hardship, and he witnessed their unshakable belief in a better future, no matter how bleak the present seemed. One evening, as Xal'tor sat in a crowded shelter, a child approached him, offering a piece of stale bread. You look hungry, the child said, their eyes wide with innocence. Xal'tor hesitated before accepting the offering. Why would you share this with me? You have so little. The child smiled. Because that's what we do. We help each other. In that moment, Xal'tor began to understand what Krenlaw had tried to explain. The humans' resilience wasn't just about their biology or their technology. It was about their spirit, their ability to hope, to care, to fight for something greater than themselves. And for the first time, Xal'tor felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. Xal'tor spent weeks immersed in the chaotic world of humanity, his biosuit allowing him to move unnoticed among the beings he once dismissed as primitive. The more he observed, the more he struggled to reconcile his previous assumptions with the reality before him. One evening, as he wandered through the remnants of a bombed-out city, he stumbled upon a makeshift gathering. Humans of all ages huddled around a fire, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. They were singing, softly at first, then louder, their voices rising in defiance of the destruction around them. Xal'tor stood at the edge of the group, transfixed. The song was unfamiliar, yet it stirred something deep within him. It wasn't just a melody, it was a declaration, a refusal to be broken, A woman noticed him and beckoned him closer. "You're new here," she said, her voice warm but tired. "Come, sit with us." "I don't wish to intrude," Xal'tor replied, his voice carefully modulated to match human tones. "Nonsense," she said, pulling him down beside her. "In times like these, no one's a stranger." As the night wore on, Xal'tor listened to their stories. Tales of loss and hardship, but also of love and triumph. A man recounted how he had saved a group of children from a collapsing building. A young woman spoke of reuniting with her family after months of separation. Each story was a testament to their resilience, their refusal to give up. "How do you do it?" Xal'tor asked, his voice betraying a hint of genuine curiosity. "How do you keep going, even when everything seems lost?" The woman beside him smiled faintly. "Because giving up isn't an option. If we stop fighting, we lose everything. And as long as there's even a sliver of hope, we'll keep going." Meanwhile, back on the Zorvian homeworld, Krenla monitored Xal'tor's progress with growing concern. His reports had become increasingly sporadic, his tone less certain. She began to suspect that the mission was not proceeding as planned. "Do you think he's compromised?" asked one of her advisors, a young Zorvian with shimmering silver scales. "Perhaps," Krenla admitted. "But if he's learning what I think he's learning, it may be the breakthrough we need. Or it could be our undoing," the advisor muttered. Xal'tor's transformation was subtle at first. He found himself questioning the Zorvian approach, their reliance on superiority and brute force. The humans had shown him a different way, one that valued collaboration, adaptability, and an unyielding belief in the impossible. One day, as he walked through a ruined marketplace, he came across a group of children playing amidst the rubble. They had fashioned a makeshift ball from scraps of fabric and were laughing as they kicked it back and forth. "Why are you laughing?" Xal'tor asked, genuinely perplexed. "Your world is in ruins. Your species is under constant threat." One of the children, a boy with dirt-smudged cheeks, looked up at him and grinned. "Because we're still here. And as long as we're here, there's something to laugh about." Back in the Zorvian council chamber, tensions were mounting. Krenla's warnings were dismissed by many as overly cautious, but she knew better. The humans were not a problem that could be solved with brute force. They were a puzzle, one that required understanding, not destruction. And as Xal'tor's reports grew increasingly infrequent, she began to fear that the Zorvians were running out of time. Xal'tor's turning point came during a particularly brutal assault on a human settlement. He watched as the Zorvian forces unleashed their full might, confident that this time, the humans would finally be defeated. But they weren't. Against all odds, the humans rallied. They used every resource at their disposal, every ounce of strength and ingenuity. And when the dust settled, they stood victorious. Not because they were stronger, but because they refused to give up. As Xal'tor surveyed the aftermath, he felt a strange mix of pride and sorrow. These humans, with their fragile bodies and indomitable spirits, had achieved what he once thought impossible. And in that moment, he knew he could no longer be a part of their destruction. The next time Xal'tor contacted Krenla, his tone was resolute. "We've been going about this all wrong," he said. "The humans aren't our enemies. They're our teachers." "Teachers?" Krenla echoed, her voice laced with disbelief. "What are you saying, Xal'tor?" "I'm saying that we have much to learn from them," he replied. "Their resilience, their hope, it's not a weakness. It's their greatest strength. And if we don't adapt, if we don't embrace what they've shown us, we'll be the ones who are destroyed." Krenla was silent for a long moment. Then, with a sigh, she said, "Return to us, Xal'tor. We have much to discuss." But Xal'tor knew he couldn't return. Not yet. There was still so much to learn, so much to understand. And as he looked out at the human settlement, he felt something he had never felt before. Hope. The tale of Xal'tor's journey spread quickly among the Zorvians, sparking debates and divisions. Some saw him as a traitor, others as a visionary. But one thing was clear: the humans had changed him, and in doing so, they had begun to change the galaxy. And so, the unkillable species continued to defy the odds, not just with their resilience, but with their ability to inspire, even their enemies, to see the world in a new light.